My name is Dennys Han. I'm the founder of Gentlemen's Fight Club, and I'm also the founder of East-West Shop. I'm the co-founder of Eastside Jiu Jitsu, and I'm the co-founder of Opus footwear. So I've been running GFC for a long time, and I've always tried to be the behind-the-scenes guy. If there's something that goes on, I'd like for somebody else to represent the brand. But after a while, I felt like people really were curious about who ran the brand. About 4 years ago, I believe, I made the decision to start being a little bit more visible so people can start seeing what the brand is, what we do, what I do behind the scenes. It took a while. I'm not terribly comfortable in front of the camera, and so for me it was something that I kind of had to prep myself for. And even being in front of the camera now, I actually have one photographer that I'm comfortable with, and his name is Ramon Felix, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's actually one of my blue belts. And we just have a really close relationship, and super natural. I don't feel like I'm in a photo shoot with him. And so to me, anytime I do have a photo shoot or anything, I try and get him to come out, because that's the guy I feel comfortable with. So I do have a little bit of like still learning how to be in front of the camera, but it is important now seeing that people do relate to what we're doing, you know, because I do go to quite a few events, and, you know, showcasing that, you know, is also important. That I've noticed that I can't be so shy. You know, I'm actually pretty shy. But yeah, that was something that I had to get comfortable with, but it's getting there. Being authentic, and I think doing it because you love it, not because you want to make a bunch of money. You can smell it when somebody is just in it for the money. And to me, that's just gross, you know? So I feel like when you start something, you start it because you love it and because you want to share it with people. And the money comes, you know, because the more you reach out to people that can relate to you, the better it is for you, because they see the authenticity to it. So to me, it's been a longer road, because I've sort of taken the sort of guerrilla style. Like, I have to shake hands with every person that I meet. I'll get a photo from a close friend, like, oh, I just saw this dude somewhere, and I take a photo and I go, oh, that guy was here 2 days ago or whatever. I remember everybody that buys my shirts and stuff. So for me, it's way more personal that way, and I think that it's a way more everlasting way, because you're talking to the owner of the company and you're buying from me, you know what I mean? Like, the orders that I get, my wife and I pack the orders, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of handle everything. Still, 16 years later, I feel like there needs to be that labor of love, you know? And to me, keeping it small, keeping it tight, that's been the true foundation and anchor to the brand, you know, and staying true to its core values. And that, to me, the success of a brand owner is just authenticity. I feel like today, people identify themselves with Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, and by the amount of people that are following them. I find it to be extremely toxic and unhealthy, because I feel like it gives people a false sense of reality. And that, to me, it comes back to GFC. You know, I'm not worried about how many followers we have. I have a brick and mortar store. So to me, I don't worry about it, because people are coming to my shop. It's sort of an old school way, but it's something that will never go away, you know, because I feel like most people live online, and the amount of success that somebody has online means nothing in the real world, to be honest with you. I mean, some people make money off doing things on social media, but I don't know how sustainable that is, you know? I mean, I've been running this brand for 16 years. We've had my store for 9, and we've just done it the old school way in our present world. we're building timeless classics, items that, you know, they'll be around when all the fads are gone and things like that. That's another thing. I don't follow trends or fads. I think that that's one of the things that I found that was successful in my career, is just sort of staying in my lane, but also providing designs that were relevant, but not jeopardizing, you know, the integrity of the brand. I think that's important. I feel like sometimes people just end up copying and pasting designs just because they think that it's gonna, you know, give them profits, but it also hurts the integrity of the brand. Wow, growing up in Brazil, it definitely made me grow up quickly. At the end of the day, Brazil's a third world country, and I grew up in Sao Paulo, Brazil. You know, I ran around as a little kid with a couple buddies of mine. We've been robbed, we've been ran after, we've, you know, gotten in fights. We just try to survive. You know, Brazil is a beautiful country, but it's also a pretty rough country. I think the gun laws are pretty strict. However, my father collected guns, so I actually grew up shooting guns. You know, I used to go every Saturday to a gun club with him. I'd go so much that he would just throw me in tournaments, and I actually won a lot of them, yeah. And so it was, you know, I know people have this love-hate relationship with guns, but I ended up having a really good relationship with guns because of my father. Brought us closer. It's a weird, you know, relationship, but it was good. You know, it was a healthy relationship. I respect guns because of him. Yeah, so it's one of those things where, like I said, people have a love-hate relationship for guns, but I love them. Yeah, so I don't get to shoot a lot just because I have way too many other hobbies and I don't have enough hours in a day. So to me, I'd love to shoot recreationally. I think it'd be really, really fun, but I have too many things going on. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 1987, December 26th. And the day after that, I believe it was like the biggest snowstorm in Georgia. I've never seen snow in my life. So moving to Georgia, my first or second day, it was all sorts of snow. Never seen snow in my life. I come from a tropical country. So we ended up living there for 9 years, and after my father passed away from cancer, my mom decided to join her friends in Los Angeles who had moved out there from Brazil a few years prior. And in 1996, about 2 months before the Olympics, the Atlanta Olympics, we made our way to Los Angeles, which actually lived in Buena Park for a year. Yeah, I lived in Buena Park for a year, and then ended up in Koreatown in the late 90s. The Koreatown was different, a lot different, you know. So, and then I just eventually made my way to Los Feliz and Highland Park, where my wife and I bought a house about 15 years ago. So we've been there for a while, and one of the reasons it says Highland Park under Gentleman's Fight Club, because that's where we live and have our house. I started skateboarding right before I moved to the US. One of my friends who I grew up with just brought a skateboard over to my house, and he's like, "This is the new thing." And I was like, "Yes, it is." Immediately, I was like obsessed. We just shared his board until I was able to get my own. That was it, you know. So I was about 11 when I started. Growing up, like middle, high school, all the way up until my adulthood, I considered myself a hardcore skateboarder. I love skateboarding, you know. So to me, music, fashion, everything to me was skateboarding. And even when I started jiu-jitsu, I related it to skateboarding to me. And that's how I relate to a lot of my friends who skate, who don't understand jiu-jitsu, and I kind of break it down to them. There's a lot of OCD-ness to jiu-jitsu. Same with skateboarding. And so every move in jiu-jitsu is a trick that you're doing on a skateboard. So if you're going, you know, from one move to another, and then submit, that's a line. So you can go from trick to trick to trick, and then you have your end line, and then you land your trick, and that's it. And then you reset. And so it's sort of, to me, how I related it. Instead of using it as this like, oh, it's almost like a fight, you use your ego and everything else. No, you sort of use it as a learning situation, you know, because I also relate music with my students, because I have a couple of mariachi players in my school, and I talk to them about music, same with jiu-jitsu, so they can understand it. And they pick up really quickly because they're musicians, so they need to practice the same, you know, song all the time and everything like that. So it's a lot of muscle memory. And so for them, I have to break it down so they can understand it. So there's many ways that you can relate skateboarding to many things in life. But to me, jiu-jitsu was the best way that I could kind of integrate both so people can understand. I've always loved shoes. I've always been a fan of sneakers, but I wasn't a collector. You know, I find collectors to be a little strange, you know, because to me, I like to wear shoes, you know. So my son wears $300 SBs to skate, and I encourage it because to me, that's a skateboarding shoe. Nike SB is a skateboarding shoe, should not be worn by somebody that doesn't skate, you know. So to me, when he was 11, he's running around in $300 shoes, scuffing them up. But to me, I don't care because that's what they're for. I started designing shoes in the early 2000s, and it was just sort of, I kind of just fell into it a little bit, you know. I had a family friend who was starting a brand and gave me the opportunity to help start it. You know, it was the first crack at it, made a lot of mistakes, learned from it, and then moved on. Worked for different companies and stuff like that. But at the time, it wasn't like, oh, you can get a job designing shoes. You can get a job doing this, that, and the other. You know, there was no social media, there was no cell phones. It was sort of just try to figure out how to get into a company and try and work for them type of thing, you know. It's just a lot of hard work, basically. So GFC has a roster of individuals. They're not particularly anyone that I'm like, I gotta have this guy. It's just people that have come into my life and that I felt like they really fit the brand. I've got musicians, artists, I've got fighters, grapplers, skateboarders. I've got all sorts of human beings that I find interesting and I want to support them, and that's what GFC is. It's just a band of individuals who are doing amazing things, you know. People like Norman Woods, who skateboards and plays music, and, you know, he trains as well. I have a great group of guys who inspire me. That's what GFC is. I've designed a lot of graphics for GFC that have never seen the light of day. But I think my favorite graphic, honestly, it's my blurred visions. And the reason why, it's because it's the realization I needed glasses. I was looking through my graphics and it felt blurry, and I was like, what's going on here? And then I just had to sort of focus my eyes and realize, oh, I think I need glasses. But then I said, you know what? I'm gonna make a graphic out of it. And I like for my graphics to sort of never go too far away from the integrity of the brand. So to me, I don't like to do things that are completely out of character for the brand. I do things that I know are gonna be relevant for it. So that one to me was such a interesting way that I came up with that design, because it literally was like, oh, my eyes are going bad, but I'm gonna go ahead and make a graphic out of it. I've had a lot of people try and copy my graphics. People get really upset, you know, that, oh, this dude's, you know, ripping your graphics off. I'm flattered. I'm always thinking of different things, so I'm not holding on to that graphic forever. So I'm always doing something else. I have a few different designs that I've already started working on and released. And so to me, people can keep copying because they're always gonna follow me. They're never gonna be able to know what I'm really doing, you know? I actually get to train quite a bit. When I got my black belt, I already was running a school with my instructor's brother, Pepe Shembri. And so I was comfortable running a gym. And once COVID hit and we had to close down GFCLA, I gave it a break. And then once we came back, Abraham Lopez and I, we both got our black belts from Pepe and Nino Shembri. We just got together and we wanted to open a small gym so we could train. For me, I like teaching. So I teach and train a couple times a week, and it keeps me on a routine. Even though I have to run the business, I still get to train and I still get to teach. And so to me, I like having a gym just so it motivates me to teach and train. And I think it's important as a black belt to feel comfortable to teach and be able to help out, because it's the knowledge that we have, I like sharing it. And so to me, I get better at jiu-jitsu by teaching as well, so. So Eastside Jiu Jitsu, we wanted to stay in the sort of Northeast LA area, but we also wanted to stay somewhere where there weren't other gyms at the time, So we decided to go with East LA, which, it's a little bit of a underserved community. And so we went in there. We actually charge a lot less than most gyms do. All the instructors are black belts, and we're just trying to provide a really good service to an amazing community. Now there's actually about 3 gyms in East LA. And one of the other guys, East LA Jiu Jitsu, they're really good dudes, and they help us and we help them. So that's the cool thing about the gym that my friend and I own, is that we have a lot of friends, and everyone's welcome at our gym. And we have a lot of friends that welcome us as well. And yeah, it's a cool thing that we have going on over there. We do a little bit of combat jiu-jitsu. I feel like it's important for people to not be too comfortable just grappling. I think once in a while it's good to add a little bit of a difference in the grappling curriculum, and also makes you realize how just grappling alone will not win a fight. Because if you're trying to hit somebody and you're holding them, it's a completely different game. It completely changes. Things change. So I like to give my students a little bit of knowledge about it, just so they are aware of things. A lot of the businesses I've done have been myself and my wife, and they've been pretty small. GFC's, I can pretty much do it all on my own, and my wife and I handle the store, and Abraham and I run the gym. But a footwear business takes a lot more money, a lot more commitment, and a lot more confidence. I've been designing shoes for a long time, so for me it wasn't too stressful because I've worked in the footwear industry a long time, but it was a long process for us. Footwear making is a little bit of a longer process. You have to make dyes and you have to make outsoles, which require a lot more work than what we do here. So anytime you start a footwear company, you're really betting on yourself. Miracle Magnum and I started Opus about 3 years ago. The conversation started during COVID. And so it took us 3 years to release the shoes. So it took a while, but it's here now and it's running. It's all over the world. We have distributors everywhere now, and we're just growing it, and we're growing it slowly, naturally, organically. Really good group of guys that we have on our team now, and the footwear company is what I believe has taken me the longest to launch. Ever since I got into shoes, I've always wanted to do my own brand. The first crack at shoes, it was actually something that I had created, and I loved it. Something about shoes, I just felt naturally, I just naturally gravitate towards shoes, and designing was it came natural to me. So it's something that I've been doing for a long time. as long as I've been, grappling, you get pretty good at things when you do it for a long time. And I try and stay relevant. I try not to be too stubborn. I feel like when you get too stuck in your ways, you start to kind of outdate yourself. So you try to be pretty fluid, but you still keep that timeless, classic mentality in mind at all times. So. Sponsorship is a funny thing because it can be a financial situation or it could be a friendly situation that turns into something financial. For me, I've always liked developing a relationship with the people that will be part of GFC. So I don't really know if I like to calling it sponsoring, because they just become part of the team. They just become sort of one of the guys on GFC, So to me, it's something that we develop, You can be the best grappler, you can be the best skateboarder, but if you and I don't have anything common and if we can't have a dinner together and have laughs and have a really good time, you and I shouldn't be working together. And I can call any one of my guys and we can have dinner and it's totally cool, Like a lot of guys come to the shop, we'll have lunch out here, and it should be something that is more personal, because these guys are gonna be part of the family. They're gonna be part of, the brand. And to me, yeah, I guess sponsoring them, yeah, it's a word that you would use, but these guys are like family to me. I've worked on a lot of shoes. Honestly, my favorite shoes that I've designed are the ones that made the most money. They're not the best, they're not the ones that people, are still talking about. They're still selling. And of all shoes, a shoe called the Jameson and a shoe called the Fader from Dennys. Yeah. They're still paying a lot of people's bills. And I designed those probably in 2009. So they're still out in the market. I did some Americas. I did all of Brian Herman's shoes. Worked with Sheckler. I did all of Sheckler's shoes. It's funny because Stefan Janowski, who ended up going to Nike, he and I worked on a shoe together. I worked with Costin. Working for Soltech, I got the opportunity to work with a lot of really amazing people. I worked with some cool people from the action sports industry, like Jeremy Twitch, who's a motocross rider. Insane. We worked on a couple shoes together, really fun project with him. I worked with a couple snowboarders, did some sandals as well, did some snowboard boots. Soul Technology, which was like Dennys America S32 boots and Altamont clothing, that's where I worked the longest, and I actually made the most amount of friends there and stuff. And actually, that's where I started Jiu Jitsu because they were in Lake Forest and Gracie Baja, like headquarters was on Bake, I believe, at that time, in this little industrial area, like park, in this little area. It was like a 1,200 square foot gym, and you get like Marcio Feitosa and Carlos Gracie Jr. just walking around. I didn't know, I had no idea who they were at the time, but come to find out, those were basically living legends. So I started training because I lived so far from my work. So I'd go in a little later and leave later. And so after work, I'd go train a little bit and then head back to LA. Yeah, so I started training in my late 20s. I was 28. I'd been skateboarding still. I was out at a schoolyard with a friend of mine. I was like, I gotta do something else, man. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm 28, I'm still in schoolyards. Granted, I'm working in skateboarding. I just felt like I wanted something different, but that gave me that same feeling of skateboarding. And so I just started training, It's one of those things I would just go every few times a week. I loved it so much that I competed a little bit and stuff like that. And when I eventually left Soltech, I didn't want to keep training down in Orange County, and I'd met Nino Schembri through a friend of mine, and so he was much closer. And right after I got my purple belt, ended up, leaving my job, and I was like, I'm just gonna try and work and live in LA. However, my instructor's gym was like 40 minutes away, but still, he was Nino Schembri. How could you not want to train with him, And so I trained under him. Hard years of training there. and eventually got my black belt. That's how my jiu-jitsu sort of journey has come along, you know. For the first 10 years of jiu-jitsu, I knew I sucked. I knew I sucked. And I think training far from home and having a long drive to think about like the things that, you know, you did in training, I think made me really humble. I learned how to defend well, you know, and that's to me, I just loved it. You know, I liked it because it was a challenge for me. I had an ego, but it wasn't, I knew everyone was gonna whoop my ass because I was probably the smallest dudes in there, you know, like I'm maybe 5'8" on a good day, 140 pounds, maybe soaking wet, you know? So, you know, for 10 years, just literally I learned how to defend. And then I just slowly started to figure things out. Right before I got my black belt, I trained with Pepe Shembri for 1.5 years straight. And really, I got my ass whooped, humbly. And to me, I'll forever be grateful for that because that really skyrocketed how I felt about jiu-jitsu. And when I got my black belt, I didn't feel like I was an imposter because I really worked hard, really hard. The Shembri brothers do not give away black belts, you know, so you had to earn it. And been passed up a couple times, you know, you could have taken your ball and gone out of the yard and never come back, you know, and go to a different gym. But I could never do that. So you just keep going until you get through it, you know, and 15 years later, I got my black belt. You know, to me, it's like so freeing because I get to teach and train. So I just love learning still. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and the fact that I still can learn, it's an amazing sport, you know, and it truly gives you natural confidence of who you are. You get to know who you are, you know, because you get choked out by tiny people and giant people. It doesn't matter who it is. So there's definitely a humility and a vulnerability that you have to have with jiu-jitsu. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't give themselves that time to understand it. A lot of people quit, and it's a shame. If I had 10 seconds to talk to 18-year-old me, be patient. That's it. Thank you.